You know what's worse than being cheated on? Being laughed at for not knowing. I walked into Crandall's diner like I did every damn morning. Same booth. Same waitress. Same 2 eggs over medium. Only this time, nobody looked me in the eye. Sherry had been cold for months. Said it was work stress, budget meetings, end-of-year financial reports. And I bought it. God help me, I bought it. But that morning, something was different. The waitress, Trina, she slid my coffee across the table, didn't smile, didn't say a word. By the time I got to my shop, I already felt the storm crawling under my skin. The front bell rang. Benny, my youngest tech, pointed to the register. Someone left you this, he said. A folded envelope, scotch-taped under the drawer. I opened it, expecting maybe a church invite or a complaint about the muffler job we'd done on Earl's truck last week. But no, it was 2 lines, printed in all caps. No name, no return address. She's not just cheating. She's helping them bury you. My stomach flipped. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because that's what you do when the bottom drops out and your brain can't keep up. I slid the letter into my back pocket and told Benny I was heading out for a parts run. Truth was, I parked 3 blocks away, sat in the truck with the engine off, and replayed the last 6 months in my head like a busted film reel. Sherry. Late night, finance meetings. Locked phone. Fewer touches. Fewer looks. Fewer damn anything. But that note made it political. Helping them bury you. I wasn't just a husband. I was a city councilman. One of the only ones standing against the mayor's new push to privatize the town's water and power. If what this letter hinted at was true, this wasn't just infidelity. This was treason. And the only thing more dangerous than a cheating wife is a cheating wife with access to your calendar, your email, and your signature stamp. Crandall's Diner used to be my place. Built that damn counter with my own hands back in '97 when I still ran crews and not council meetings. I laid every board in that floor. But now, I walk in and feel like the town dog with a broken leg. Sympathy in their eyes, but nobody calling me over. I didn't go back the next day, or the next. Instead, I drove 2 hours south to a strip mall in Athens. Bought a $60 burner phone in cash, a fresh SD card, and a GPS tracker off a guy in a rusted-out Camry who called me boss and didn't ask questions. When I got back, Sherry was already in bed, her phone on the charger, face down, locked as always. She'd always said trust was everything in a marriage. Hell of a slogan for someone planning to ruin me. I waited until 3 a.m., slid out of bed like I was dodging a tripwire, quiet as a breath. I pulled her phone off the charger, connected it to my laptop with a clone cable, and let the backup program start pulling data. 15 minutes. 15 minutes of my heart pounding like a jackhammer while the glow from the screen lit up the room like a crime scene. Messages, emails, calendar invites to closed-door sessions. But not City Hall ones. Private ones. With Hal Peters. Hal damn Peters. Mayor. Golf buddy. Snake in a pressed suit. The one pushing the utilities grab and acting like it was for the greater good. And then I saw it. One file folder buried under Sherry's email account. Encrypted zip. Titled 2023_finance_projections_alt. I cracked it open with a password she'd used since we were married, Libby94. Our daughter's birth year. Inside were documents. Real ones. Marked up budgets. Alternative ledgers. Draft contracts with a private equity firm in Tallahassee. Documents that, if I hadn't seen them with my own eyes, I would have called conspiracy theory. And each one had my digital signature. Not copies. Stamped. Time-coded. Like I'd approved them myself. My stomach turned cold. This wasn't just an affair. It was identity theft with a wedding band. I closed the laptop and slid the burner into my coat pocket. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay beside her, watching the ceiling, listening to her breathe like nothing had changed. The next morning, she kissed me goodbye, told me she had an all-day audit in City Hall. I watched her leave, then followed her in my truck, and let the GPS I'd planted under her back bumper do the rest. You ever trail your own wife through your own town and feel like the outsider? That morning, I stayed 5 cars behind. Her taillights bobbed in and out of traffic. She wasn't heading to City Hall like she claimed. She passed it. Twice. Instead, she pulled into the parking lot behind Tilden and Dorsey Accounting. The firm her friend Lori used to work at before it mysteriously downsized. Funny how Lori moved to Nashville and suddenly wouldn't return Sherry's calls. Sherry got out. Black slacks, white blouse, big purse. That purse now had a tiny GPS clipped under the lining and a listening bug sewn into a pin in the side pocket. She didn't know she was wired, and she didn't know I was watching. 30 minutes later, I saw him. Hal Peters, the goddamn mayor. Greased back hair, Ray-Bans, suit 2 shades too slim for a man his age. Walked right up to her and kissed her cheek like he owned it. They walked in together like they'd done it 100 times before. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Instead, I drove to the corner lot across the street, parked behind a van for the cable company, fired up my laptop, and patched into the bug. The signal was rough, but I heard enough. Only a few more weeks. We just need him to sign the final budget adjustments. He's slipping. You said he'd go quietly. Relax. He still thinks I'm stressed. I'll massage him into it. And then Sherry's voice dropped into that fake sweet tone she always used when she was about to ask for something expensive. He won't fight it, Hal. He still thinks I'm the only one on his side. You don't understand. He worships me. They laughed. I sat there, gripping the wheel hard enough to pop a tendon. That was the moment I stopped thinking of myself as a victim. That was the moment I started planning. Not just revenge. Not just exposure. Annihilation. I didn't want them embarrassed. I wanted them ashamed. That night, I made 3 copies of the audio. One for my lawyer. One for a safe deposit box. One for a guy I knew in Atlanta, former journalist, now ghostwriter for political memoirs. He owed me a favor from a job I landed him back in '04. Then I picked up dinner on the way home. Fried chicken, coleslaw, sweet tea. Sherry's favorite. Because you always feed the enemy before you fire the first shot. You signed these. The woman behind the counter at County Records squinted over her readers, tilting her head. No, I said flatly. Never seen him in my life. She hesitated. They're notarized. Yeah, forged, I muttered. I need copies of everything. All contracts filed in the last year where my name shows up, Dale Trenton. Any infrastructure, utilities, or zoning related. You got ID? I slid it across the counter. 2 minutes later, I walked out with a folder thick enough to choke a dog. Inside, 3 multi-million-dollar water privatization contracts. Filed over 6 months. All with my signature. All backdated. Every one of them had Hal Peters listed as the municipal overseer and a Tallahassee private equity firm as the buyer. They hadn't just tried to screw me. They'd used me to do it. I drove straight to a strip mall copy center, walked in and said, I need 50 color prints, double-sided. Can you make it look like a town bulletin? You got the file? I slid over a USB drive. Headline reads, IS your water already sold? Font size 40, bold. Include this image on the front. Mayor Peters shaking hands with that smug out-of-town broker. Then highlight the contract pages with my signature. I want it clear. You want your name on it? No. And you never saw me. By sundown, I was out distributing like I was Santa in a war zone. Left stacks on tables inside the diner. Slipped 5 under the council chamber door. Taped 2 inside the church bulletin board. And walked into the VFW and handed one straight to old Chief Barrett. He glanced at it, then up at me. Jesus Christ, Dale. You sign off on this. Nope. He nodded once, real slow. I'll make sure people see it. Back home, Sherry was pouring herself rose and dancing to Fleetwood Mac like the world was hers. She twirled when I walked in. Look who's finally home, she said, handing me a plate of reheated pasta. Rough day. Not really. Just driving around, talking to folks. Oh. She raised an eyebrow. Anyone interesting? Everyone, I said, then took a long sip of water. She had no idea that 2 councilmen had already texted each other in a panic, or that one of Hal's campaign sponsors called him a backstabbing liar over dinner. Sherry tilted her head. You okay? I nodded. Better than I've felt in weeks. She smiled and leaned in to kiss my cheek. I let her. But in my mind, I was already watching the mayor's empire start to bleed. And her name was about to be front page. The first call came just after 7:30 a.m. I was shaving. The house phone rang landline, since Sherry insisted it made us feel more connected to the town. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, my cell buzzed. Unknown number. I answered on speaker. Dale. It's Councilman Breckman. Didn't expect that. Morning, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Something I can help you with? You. Got a minute? Sure. You. You dropped off some material at City Hall yesterday? Not me personally, I said. Might have been someone using my name. Silence on the line. A long one. You're telling me those signatures aren't yours? I'm telling you, I said slowly, wiping shaving cream from my jaw. Someone took my name, forged documents, and is trying to push a multi-million-dollar deal without public consent. Another pause. Then, Jesus. Click. He hung up. I didn't smile. I walked downstairs to find Sherry already dressed, pencil skirt, blazer, heels, full makeup. She looked like someone trying too hard not to sweat. You're up early, I said. Conference call, she muttered. Peters is pulling everyone in. I watched her butter toast with robotic precision. You okay? I asked. She blinked. Yeah, why wouldn't I be? No reason. She left before I finished breakfast. I gave it 20 minutes. Then I pulled the burner phone from my garage cabinet and texted a number I hadn't used in years. Need a favor? Meet me at the bait shop. Noon. The recipient? Max Lormer. My high school classmate turned investigative blogger. Bit of a nut. Paranoid. But he had contacts. Old tech. Old school ethics. No paper trail. At noon, we sat by the freezers filled with shrimp and worms while I showed him the forged contracts. These aren't just fake, he said, squinting over his glasses. They're clumsy. You'd never use this font on real permits. I can trace the software used to generate these. Can you link it to someone? I asked. He grinned. Give me 2 days. That night, Sherry came home smelling like cheap white wine and nervous sweat. Her smile was too sharp, like she was trying to read my mood without giving herself away. How was your day? She asked. Enlightening, I said. She looked at me for a second too long, then walked upstairs. In the quiet of our kitchen, I opened my laptop and rewatched the diner security footage I'd pulled the week prior. There, at 6:42 a.m., 2 days ago. Sherry, handing something to Trina. Not a napkin, not a tip, an envelope. She never saw the camera angle from behind the milkshake machine. But I did. The envelope matched the one taped under my register. Same fold, same color. So whoever wrote, she's helping them bury you, wasn't just warning me. They were trying to wake me up. And now I was wide damn awake. Friday morning, I was in the garage rewiring a busted light over the workbench when the doorbell rang. I didn't rush. When I finally opened the front door, Hal Peters was standing there. Slick suit, wet hair, fake tan cracking at the temples. Morning, Dale, he said like we were still on friendly terms. I didn't move. What do you want? He gestured to the porch swing. Can we talk? I stepped aside, just enough for him to pass. He took a seat like he owned the place, crossing his legs and brushing invisible lint from his pants. You've been busy, he said, eyes scanning the driveway. People are concerned. About water rights? Or forgery? Hal's smile didn't budge. About you. Good, I said. They should be. He dropped the grin. Look, Dale, nobody wants a public mess. This can still be contained. We keep it in-house, make a few adjustments, fix some paperwork. I cut him off. That paperwork was a felony. Multiple ones. You think I'm gonna roll over 'cause you came dressed like you're selling funeral insurance? He shifted. You don't know everything. You're chasing shadows. That was his warning. But I stared him down. You break into someone's life, I said, voice low, forge their name, use their marriage like a backdoor to get what you want, and then tell them not to dig? I leaned in. I'm not chasing shadows, Hal. I'm chasing blood. Hal stood. This'll cost you, Dale. I held his gaze. Already paid. Now it's your turn. He left without another word. 5 minutes later, I opened the closet in the spare room, reached under the loose floorboard, and pulled out the micro-recorder I'd planted 2 nights ago. The one in Sherry's purse. She'd left it hanging in the hallway, just like always. Trusting. Lazy. I scrolled through the audio files until I found the one labeled Tuesday. The sound of rustling, heels clicking then. Hal's voice. He's not gonna stay quiet. Then we push harder. Make him the unstable one. And the vote. It goes through regardless. Once the paperwork hits the press, the town won't care who signed what. I paused it there. That was enough. I backed up the file onto a flash drive and drove straight to Max's place. He was already knee-deep in IP traces and PDF metadata when I walked in. "You got something?" I asked. He turned his laptop. "Better. That contract file? Guess where it originated?" I stared at the screen. It was registered to Sherry's work computer. Timestamped. Geotagged. She didn't just help. She authored the damn thing. By Saturday morning, the flash drive was in an envelope, slipped into the backdoor mailbox of the Murrow Post, our town's only real newspaper. No name, no note. Just the evidence. By noon, it was live. Leaked audio ties president of the city planning board, city permit scandal, to local water grab. Max texted me one word. Kaboom. I didn't respond. I was already sitting in the back booth of our local diner, black coffee in hand, waiting. I didn't have to wait long. Sherry walked in like a storm dressed for church. People turned. She noticed. She always noticed. But this time, her smile was cracked. Eyes darting, shoulders too square. She slid into the booth across from me. "You leaked it," she said. "Nope," I replied. "You did." I tossed a manila envelope on the table, same kind she used for her Sunday lesson plans. She opened it. Inside, a printed transcript of the audio, IP trace logs from Max, screenshots tying her work login to the forged permit PDFs. Her hand trembled. "You were supposed to be the safe one," she whispered, like I'd broken some sacred marital code by refusing to be the fool. I leaned in, voice even. "You used my name, my trust, my home. You slept beside me and planned to bury me under a pile of dirt contracts and city bribes. Hal promised me." "I don't care what Hal promised you." We sat in silence, a dead air between two people who used to share everything. Coffee refills came and went. Nobody bothered us. Then she asked, quieter, "What do you want?" "Accountability," I said. "Public. Loud. Unavoidable. Meaning, you go on record. Say you forged the permits. Say you misled the vote. Say Hal and the board were behind it. You walk in front of that train before it hits the town. And if I don't?" I sipped my coffee. "Then the next leak includes photos, emails, texts, the burner phones Hal bought you, and the ledger I found tucked in your yoga bag showing all the under-the-table payouts." She swallowed hard. "You went through my. Spare me the outrage." She blinked, tried to gather herself, but her mask was gone. What sat across from me wasn't my wife anymore. Just someone wearing her skin, playing for time. "You don't get it," she said finally. "This isn't just a city deal. It's bigger. You stir this pot too hard, you're not gonna like what crawls out." I smiled. Good. I was getting bored. Sunday morning, Hal made the dumbest move of his career. He called a press conference. Standing behind a cheap podium outside the Civic Center, he looked like a man trying to outrun a tidal wave in loafers. Sherry wasn't beside him this time. Just a couple of board members with stiff faces and too many blinking tells. "Let me be clear," Hal said, sweating through his collar. "These allegations are baseless. Political attacks meant to derail the community progress we've made. We will not be intimidated by anonymous cowards hiding behind edited recordings and forged documents." He glanced toward the cameras, forced to chuckle. "Fake news." I didn't laugh. I sent Max the follow-up file. By 2:30 p.m., every inbox in the Murrow Post, the mayor's office, and the sheriff's department received a pristine recording, unedited, of Hal talking about the upcoming land sweep and how old landowners won't even see it coming. This one also included a short clip where he mentioned paying off certain council votes. The article dropped before dinner. This time, no one was laughing. I parked outside the town hall that evening, watching from the shadows as two city investigators walked out of the building with box loads of files. Hal's car was still parked up front. He hadn't come out in hours. Back home, I checked my phone. A text from Max. Benny flipped. Benny Frakes, soft-spoken accountant, board treasurer, known for keeping his head down and shoes clean. Turns out, Benny didn't like prison. He turned state's witness. Gave up financial trails, burner transactions, names. Names like Sherry, Hal, and 3 others I hadn't even known were involved. My phone rang. It was Sherry. I let it go to voicemail, but she left a message. "You don't understand what you're starting. This isn't just some grudge match, Dale. You're messing with people who bury problems for a living." She paused. "I didn't want to hurt you. Too late for that. Monday morning didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a trap that hadn't snapped shut yet. The town was buzzing. Every cafe, hardware store, gas station, people weren't whispering anymore. They were talking names out loud. Hal Peters, Sherry, the board. The Post called it the permit scandal. I called it round two. But I knew Hal. And Hal didn't go down clean. At 11:42 a.m., my front window shattered. Not by accident. A rock the size of a grapefruit sailed in and split the living room lamp. Glass everywhere. The rock was wrapped in paper. Stop, or you'll regret it. My first instinct was to grab my old .38 from the closet safe. Second instinct? I made coffee instead. 2 hours later, Max called me from the basement of his pawn shop, voice tight. They tried to get to me. What do you mean? Some guy came in asking for old vinyls, but he was wearing dress shoes and no one buys Glenn Miller records in a ski mask. You all right? Didn't even get through the door? But Dale, this thing's getting teeth. I hung up, drove out to the edge of town, met an old friend, Officer Jace Holloway, retired 2 years ago, still sharp as a switchblade. Used to fish with my dad. Trusted him. I laid it all out. The emails. The ledger. The calls. Even Benny flipping. He stared at the papers I handed him like he was holding radioactive truth. You realize, he said, if this goes federal, half this town's gonna look like a crime scene. Let it. He sighed. Watch your six. Hal's got friends. Old ones. Wealthy ones. That night, a second message arrived. Not a rock. Not a call. A photo. Taped to the windshield of my truck. It was me. At the lake. Arms around Sherry. 2008. My hand resting over hers. She was pregnant with our daughter. I hadn't seen that photo in years. But someone had it. And they wanted me to remember what I was risking. It wasn't just headlines now. It was bloodlines. I burned the photo in a coffee can and sat on the porch with a baseball bat till sunrise. I wasn't afraid. But I knew what came next. They thought I'd play it safe. That I'd stop once I cracked the headlines. That I'd roll over when the warnings came, the rock, the fake customer, the photo from a forgotten summer. They didn't realize something. I had already died the day Sherry picked power over family. So I wasn't scared of what came next. The city council hearing was set for Thursday evening. It was supposed to be a dull formality, zoning approval for a new eco-friendly luxury development that just so happened to sit on my late uncle's old hunting land. Hal thought he'd walk in, nod heads, vote yes, and walk out 10 pounds richer. But the second he stepped in, every camera in that room turned to him. Because I was already there. So was Max. So was Jace. And so was Benny, sitting next to a DA with a manila folder in her lap that might as well have been a guillotine. I walked up to the mic during the public comment period, cleared my throat, and unzipped the small leather folder under my arm. Council members, I began, you've all received proposals, blueprints, projections. But none of that matters if the permits are fake, if the votes are bought, if the people of this town have been sold out without ever being told. I held up the folder and read names. Hal Peters, Sherry Collins, Raymond Keats, Lydia Morris, and 2 board assistants who falsified signatures under pressure. Gasps. A few cameras clicked. One woman fainted. I wasn't done. This isn't just about corruption. This is about the way men like Hal thought they could do whatever they wanted, cheat, lie, steal, sleep with another man's wife, forge the future of a town they never loved. Hal stood up, red-faced, veins bulging. This is a smear campaign. This man is bitter over a divorce. I turned to him, calm. You're right. I'm bitter. Not because I lost my wife. Because I married poison. And then found out she was sleeping with the snake who wrote the town charter. Silence. Then Benny stood, shaking hands, but steady voice. Everything he's saying is true. I have the files. The wire transfers. The approvals. I'll give them to the feds myself. Hal lunged at him. The sheriff intercepted him mid-step. They cuffed him in front of the town. In front of Sherry, who had walked in late wearing sunglasses in shame. As they dragged Hal away, she tried to follow him. Hal, wait. But he didn't look back. Neither did I. Sherry was never charged, but she was disbarred from ever holding public office again. She moved to another county, tried to run a wellness blog. Failed. Nobody cared. Hal? 27 months in state prison for fraud and misuse of public funds. He gave an interview once, claimed it was all a setup. Nobody believed him. Max's pawn shop became a landmark. Jace got an unofficial consulting job with the new mayor's office. Benny disappeared, maybe to a new life, maybe into protection. As for me, I kept the house, the land, the name. And every time I drive past that town hall, I smile. Because I wasn't just the fool of the town anymore. I was the man who made them all famous.